Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting installment of FMAcademy. Today is a live presentation. If you have any audio issues during this presentation, please try dialing in instead of using computer audio. We've heard reports that can be create a more consistent experience than the computer audio. If you have questions, of course, by all means, please submit them to the question panel, and we will answer any and all questions we can at the end of the presentation. Most, if not all, of the content today relies on features that are available only in FileMaker 16. So if you are interested in a trial of FileMaker 16 and you currently have another version of the product, we're going to include a link. I'll put it in the chat or in the question and answer panel as well, a link to download a trial of FileMaker 16. Today's presenter is Rohit Roy, FileMaker developer for IT Solutions, certified in versions 12 through 16. And Rohit is a JSON evangelist to present to you on JSON.
Thanks, Mark. So as Mark said, my presentation today is on using JSON for multiple script parameters. FMAcademy is a consortium of companies that you see here on the screen. And Mark already went over my qualifications. So for the agenda today, first we're going to cover the basics of JSON. Then we're going to cover the new JSON functions FileMaker introduced in FileMaker 16. And then we're going to use JSON as a method for passing multiple script parameters. So what is JSON? JSON's short for JavaScript Object Notation. So as you can guess from the name, that's where it got its start, is from JavaScript. It's a attribute value pair format for data sharing. Another popular attribute value pair format is XML. JSON is zero indexed. As you will see later, we'll explain what that means. Unlike XML, JSON is a little bit easier to read. I guess that's probably more of a subjective claim. It's objectively more lightweight. It requires a lot less characters than XML. And it is quickly becoming a standard across the entire web. So let's open up our first demo. So here, I put together I just took some examples from the Yahoo Weather API, queries that you can do. It's a public API that you can send in a query, and it'll give you back the response of what you want. And this one is related to weather. I have 6 examples here. So let's say if we want to find out what the wind is for Chicago, Illinois, we would build our query in the endpoint like this. How you build that query is a whole lesson onto itself, but just know that it contains information. And you would send the request. All this is going to do is do an insert from URL and put it in this response below. And what we get back is JSON. So this is JSON right here. But if we want what we wanted was the wind, which is, it tells you right here, the wind chill makes it -31. Wow, that's cold. We can see a more simpler one here, sunset time for Hawaii. This is a smaller JSON response, and you'll see here the sunset today is at 6:11 p.m. So this is just the basic format of what JSON looks like. Let's go over the 6 JSON types, 6 JSON data types. The first one is a string. So like FileMaker, a string is just any combination of text and numbers and potentially other symbols. So Also, like in FileMaker, a string will be in quotes. So here a string is just the name Mark, and it's in quotes. And the name of the attribute is name, and the attributes are always in quotes. They're separated, the attribute and the value are separated by a colon, and they're usually wrapped in curly brackets, which denotes an object. The second data type is a number, and numbers also, like in FileMaker, can just be passed as is. They are not in quotes. As I mentioned earlier, a JSON object is wrapped in curly brackets. So here you can refer to the whole thing as an object, or we can just refer to this one student object, which contains the name and age. The fourth type of data type is an array, and arrays are denoted by straight brackets. And so here we have an array of 4 different items, 4 different elements, and as you can see, you can pass all types of different data types in an array. The first 2 are strings, the second one is a number, and the last one is a JSON object. And you'll notice that these elements are separated by commas. So that is part of the JSON notation. The fifth one is a Boolean. So that's just going to be a true or false value. In FileMaker, it might be noted as 0 or 1. It can also be noted as true or false. So we see here is active, is true, is approved, is false. So the true and false wouldn't be passed in quotes. They would be just reserved text. And then finally, the last JSON data type is null. So that's just an empty value, and it's going to say null. So let's go over the JSON functions in FileMaker. In 16, FileMaker gave us 6 new JSON functions: JSON set element, JSON get element, JSON list keys, that's going to be your attributes, JSON list values, JSON delete element, JSON format elements. Most of these are going to be somewhat intuitive as to what they mean by just the name. We're going to be focusing for this tutorial on the first 2, JSON set element and JSON get element. You will also see JSON format elements just as a way to make the JSON more readable. So JSON set element has 4 attributes. First is the JSON. So we can pass in an empty JSON. Usually you would pass in an empty JSON object, so it would just be open and closed curly brackets. Or you can pass in existing JSON if you wanted to modify an existing JSON element. The next one would be key or index or path. It should probably be more like key and or index and or path. And that's going to just tell you, that's you telling FileMaker which element in the JSON to set or modify. Then you would tell the third parameter would be the value. And then lastly, you would have to specify which type. And we see here, there's this handy little chart from FileMaker of the different types you can pass in to that value. And they match, the first 6 match up with what we saw earlier about the 6 different JSON types, just with JSON in front of it. So JSON string, JSON number, JSON object, JSON array, JSON Boolean, JSON null, and JSON raw. And JSON raw is just going to say, FileMaker, take your best guess at what this data type is. And if you just pass it in as an empty string, it would just be JSON raw. An important thing to note about the JSON type is that you do not pass it in quotes as a string. They're reserved words for the purposes of this function, which is unusual for most FileMaker functions. We'll see how that works in a little bit. As in right here. So here we're setting a blank JSON object. That's the first one you see here. And then the attribute we want to set, or the key rather, is name. And we want to set that to mark. And that's a JSON string. And then this is the result that we get. So you might have been thinking, okay, well, if you want to make more complex JSON, you have to nest JSON set element functions within each other. And that could work, but luckily FileMaker has made it easier for us to set multiple objects within the same JSON set element function. It works a lot the same way that the substitute function in FileMaker works, where you can pass multiple search and replaces within the same substitute function, just within square brackets. So here we're setting the student name, student age, student favorite subject, the street address, and the city address. And you can see how it builds over here, that these are nested. The name and age are nested within the name, age, and favorite subject are nested within the student object. And then we have a address object with two elements of its own nested within the student object. One thing to note here is that even though we pass it in a certain order, it comes back alphabetized. That's just FileMaker's way of doing it. There's not really anywhere around it. If you're using the functions, it's not incredibly important. If you had some sort of unusual requirement where you needed to get them in a specific order, you would not get that information in the JSON. Here's an example of multiple student objects that we're setting in a JSON. And so we see here, this is what we meant by zero index. So in here, in the square brackets next to student, tells you which index to put it at. So that's 0. So that's actually 0 corresponds to the first student object. And then we have the one corresponds to the second student object. We're missing 2 here, an index of 2. So the third object is null. So it's just empty. And JSON will delimit. I mean, clearly everything past index 3, so after the fourth student object, is empty as well. But this one is specifically empty, so it is referring to it as null. So we've set JSON. If we want to retrieve elements from the JSON, we would use JSON get element. And JSON get element has only 2 parameters: the JSON that you are using and the key and or index and or path that you want of the element you want to retrieve. So here we're gonna set the JSON to what we worked with in the last example in the define variables part of the let statement, and then we're gonna try to get the JSON. We're gonna get element of this JSON. We want to get the age of the student of the fourth student at index 3. So that's 19. Here we see the result is 19. So now that we've overviewed what JSON is and a quick little lesson on how we can set and get JSON elements, let's talk about script parameters. The script there are multiple ways to call scripts in FileMaker. You can call from the scripts menu or the manage scripts dialog, or from a menu item or a button, or within another script. For most of those ways, you can specify a script parameter down here, where it says optional script parameter. And the script parameter was introduced, I believe, in version 7. Don't quote me on that. I wasn't a developer back then, but that's what I've been told by reliable sources. Before that, you presumably had to find other methods if there was information that you wanted your script to receive from the environment the user was in, maybe set a global or something like that, some sort of, well, we would refer to it as a trick now, but it wasn't a trick back then. It was just the way you did it. So the script parameter is a very handy tool that we have to give the script some context about how we want it to run. The unfortunate side is that it's singular. You can specify an optional script parameter. Sometimes you have multiple values of the user environment that you want to pass that can't be captured in just one single parameter as such. You have, but FileMaker doesn't have any built-in way to pass multiple ones, so you kind of just have to find a workaround. People have been finding workarounds, I imagine, since version 7. If you were doing it yourself, I imagine you would probably start off with the list function. And with the list function, you can pass multiple values, and then you can do something simple like get value in your script. If you want to get the name of a client, you could pass it in as the first value, and then you could pass in their invoice total and value 2, and then in the script you would say get value from the script parameter, get value 1, and you would set that to the customer name in the script, and you get value 2, and so on and so forth. That has its limitations, because if one of them is empty, as is often the case with data, it's never perfect. If something in the middle is missing, the list function will just remove it from the list. It won't leave a blank value. It will just move value 3 up to value 2. So if you were a little bit more savvy, you would separate your value somehow, usually with a carriage return. And that might seem a little bit more crude, but that actually gets you more reliable results. Both those methods have their limitations, as people quickly found out. So they switched to some sort of attribute value pair system. That's what a lot of developers use. It could just be some sort of custom scripted text parsing, or you could use custom functions that are more widely available. Six Fried Rice came up with some custom functions a while ago that have become really popular in the community. But now, with FileMaker 16, we have native support for JSON. So the logical evolution of passing multiple script parameters would be to use JSON now. So let's do another demo and see how we can pass script parameters using JSON. Okay, so here we have a student record. We have listed here the name and the age of the student, and then this is a portal of related courses that the student is taking. And I'll just show you quickly what the relationship dialog looks like, just 3 tables related to each other. So let's do the first example with the student name. So we'll come in here, specify the script parameter. We'll use a JSON set element. For reference, I'll show you what those attributes it needs are. So the first is the JSON. We're starting with just a blank JSON object. And then we'll get the key or index or path. So this is just going to be, let's just pass name. The value is going to be the student name. And then the JSON type is just JSON string. Note again that JSON string is not passed in quotes. You can pass it in quotes, it will just evaluate it as JSON raw. Let's remove this reference. And let's edit the script. So here already we're getting the script parameter using a get script parameter. Also something we got in version 7. So let's set a variable name, and let's pull it from that JSON object that we set script parameter to. So we'll use JSON get element. The JSON we want is the script parameter. And the object we want is name. And to prove to you that it actually did get the name from the script parameter, let's just show a custom dialog with the name. Okay, so if everything worked, if I did everything correctly, when we click this button, we'll see a custom dialog with this name Ashton. Awesome. I didn't make a mistake. So since we passed the field and not just Ashton, we can go to the next record, do the same thing. One thing that's cool about JSON is that you just put some random characters in here, and we can add even more, whatever. We pass it, we get it back exactly as we have it in the field. And that's because JSON is a standard that takes care of all of this for you. So certainly you could, if you were passing your own way of, if you had your own method of passing name, value, attributes in the script parameter, you could do that, and you would have to use some sort of characters to wrap the name, the attribute, and the value. And if you wanted to use those reserved characters in the attribute or the value, you would have to find a way to escape those, and it can get messy quick, and it's a lot of effort. You don't have to worry about that with JSON. The FileMaker JSON functions just take care of that for you. So great, we passed one parameter, basically just the student name. Let's pass more than that. After all, the name of the demo is multiple script parameters. So here we're wrapping the earlier element we set in the square brackets, so we can do multiple. And this time, let's pass the H. So it's just going to be the H. And this time, it's a JSON number. And let's edit the script. And we're going to do the same thing. Just replace name everywhere with age. So change the variable name, the element that we're getting. Age, and we'll change it up here too. One thing to note, it doesn't matter for this example. When we retrieve this one needs to be edited. Messed that up. Just a script parameter. When we get the age, when we get the age from here, it's going to be text. Just you won't be able to tell the difference when we display it, but if we wanted to get it as whenever you use JSON get element, it retrieves everything as text. We would want to wrap this in a get as number, and then it will be a number. Okay, so let's test that. Perfect. So we can pass as many variables as we want using that format. There's also some tools that we learned that can make passing other types of data a little bit easier as well. So let's pass the first 3 courses here. Again, remember that's a related table. So we'll set the first course, which is going to be an index of 0. And we'll use get nth record to get that course subject. So they don't line up correctly. The first record is index 0. And that's going to be a JSON string. Just copy and paste that to pass the next 3. Remove the last semicolon. And we'll pass it in the same way that we'll retrieve it and pass in the custom dialog the same way we did name and age. So we want to get the course. We could specify the first course, which is 0, or we could leave it blank and it just automatically knows to get the first one. And if we get it accurately, it will display in this custom dialog. And we can do the same thing here. We need to change this now. We want to get the second course. So we'll put a 1 next to that, denoting the second course object. We're going to want to set this repetition to another repetition. So yeah, this is it can be a little bit confusing because JSON is 0 indexed, and FileMaker for the most part is indexed from 1. Although you could just start it from 0 for variables. But in general, it's just going to be it's just going to be 2 different standards. But you just have to remember that. And we'll just stick with the first 2 courses for now. So let's test it. Name, age, whoops. Okay, so that didn't work. So we actually, my bad guys, I gave you the wrong information. You do have to, we will have to pass the element that we want. So we got the first one, Intro to Journalism, and then American History. Let's take a look at what that looks like actually when we passed it. So when we get the script parameter, I'm going to format it. I'm going to use the JSON format elements so we can see that a little bit better. So we see here we got the age and name passed in, and then the course, the 3 courses we passed in are in an array. We have time for one more example?
Oh, yeah, you're doing good.
Okay, so let's take it one more level advanced, and let's do some nested parameters. Okay, so I'm going to relate these records to each other real quick, so that way we can have 2 records to work with. So we have 2, we'll give the teacher a name. We have 2 students here. We haven't done anything yet. So let's pass the related student names and ages to the script. So we'll get our handy JSON set element function, set a blank JSON object, and then let's get student. Now we're going to want to put student in brackets. We have multiple students we're working with here. This needs to be in quotes. And we'll use get nth record. First record, and this is a JSON string. Let's do this a little faster by just copying and pasting this. Change this, we want the age, and it's a JSON number. And we'll do that for the second student as well. Just change the index to 1 and change the record that we want to retrieve to 2. And then let's do something similar. We'll say show the name for the first student. So that's a name, and we're gonna do JSON get element, the script parameter. We want from the first student, so student index 0, we want the name. And then if we did it right, we can display that name in a custom dialog. So let's check it out. I'm going to put this in the script debugger again so we can see it out. So I want to show you what the script parameter looks like. So it looks like as you would probably expect, if you remember the examples we went through in the slideshow. So we just have two student objects with their age and name for each student. And then the name comes up for the first student. Let's edit that script again, and let's work with, we got the name for the first student. Let's get the age of the second student. So let's change this to the name to age, and the element we want is also going to be the age, but we want it from the second student, so that's at index 1. For consistency's sake, let's put in the repetition name. Let's put in some repetitions on these variables. Okay, so let's test it out. We got the name, we already knew that worked. And then we get the age of the second student. So that's an example of how you can pass multiple objects and retrieve the information you want from that script parameter. That can come in really handy if you were, let's say, wanted to pass in related invoice line data with an invoice. In general, you're probably going to have to script making that script parameter because we just passed 2 student records, and then the other example would pass 3 course records. It was just a set amount. Normally, you're going to have a variable amount of those that you want to set. So you'd have to either script looping through those records or create some sort of recursive custom function to determine that. So let's wrap up. Why should we use JSON? Well, it's a robust attribute value pair system that allows you to have multiple pairs. So this translates into multiple objects, multiple repetitions in terms of variables that we can work with in a FileMaker script. And this is going to be a real game changer. Who knows where we're going to go from this? Multiple script parameters we're passing, in general, maybe 4 or 5 lines of information. Who knows how big the script parameters might get, how much data we can pass into a script. I'm not advocating that per se, that you explode your scripts like that, but who knows? That might be what the future holds. It's a new territory that we're going into. But even though it's new territory, it's already got broad adoption. It's getting more broad adoption in FileMaker, but it's already used everywhere in the web. It's a web standard, so you're going to have to use it for other stuff, assuming your world is bigger than just FileMaker itself. So you might as well learn to use it and adopt the new standard that a lot of developers, I feel all developers should be using now that we have the tools available. So let's open up to questions. First, down here, we have a link where if you don't have FileMaker 16, you can go here and sign up for a free trial. I believe it's 30 days. You're going to need the latest version of FileMaker in order to test out what we've just done here, because as we covered, the new functions are only available in 16.
Yeah, so as Rohit said, there's a link to, I just sent it through the chat dialog too, a link to FileMaker Trial. It is 30 days, but it is free from restrictions. You can do anything with it, just you get 30 days with it. So you can take advantage of all this stuff. I am going to run through these questions. There are quite a few, and they're probably going to keep coming in, so we'll just see how many we get through. Sorry if we don't get to your question. We're going to try to respond to as many as we can with the post-webinar blog post. That is where you will find answers to these questions, as well as a recording of this presentation and the demo file that was used. So when would you send a Boolean type to FileMaker instead of just JSON number, which would be 0 if empty or 1? So I guess the question is, when would you specifically use a Boolean type?
That's just really just a matter of preference.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of other databases have a distinct Boolean field. I know a lot of SQL databases do. We don't have that in FileMaker. We just use a number, and for the most part, it works just as well. The only reason why it wouldn't work just as well is because there's a little bit of ambiguity there to a newcomer. But
Right.
As anyone who's been working with FileMaker for any amount of time knows, there's really no difference and in FileMaker between the two data types, and there's really not much to speak of between the two data types. It's just to keep it a little bit cleaner, a little bit less ambiguous.
Okay, and then this question is asking about why FileMaker JSON uses the 0-based array versus a 1, I guess, as its starting number.
Why does FileMaker JSON?
Is the first time FM uses 0 to start counting elements instead of 1? Why the discrepancy?
That is, well,
just more common.
That's just how JavaScript requires it.
Yeah.
Is for it to be 0 index. There's a huge debate about 0 index or 1 index. For whatever reasons, a lot of people think that 0 is well, it's more efficient maybe in terms of the very basic programming, and some people claim to be able to think clearer, 0 index.
Okay.
I personally think, we're humans, and if we should just keep everything 1 index, but that's just people above my pay grade have made that decision. So.
Okay. Is there a max character limit for script parameters that we could hit with a really big JSON array?
Good question. I've never hit or heard of a limit in the optional script parameter.
Right.
If that ever happened and you could plan for it, you could pass the script parameter in a field and pass the field as a script parameter.
Right.
To get around any limitation that there might be on that script. It would be very big that you're talking about in terms of defining the calculation for the script parameter. I don't believe there is any such thing. The only limit would be the limit for it would probably be the same limit that you could hit for any text field.
Exactly.
Which is, I believe, 2 gigs or 4 gigs.
4 gigs.
It's very big. So,
volumes and volumes.
Right. I mean, if you could get the entire Wikipedia as JSON, that would certainly hit the limit. But for most practical instances, that's not something you have to worry about too much if you program correctly.
Okay. Is it possible to pass containers? I guess container data, binary data?
You would have to convert it to a text representation. So I believe it was maybe FileMaker 13. We have 2 functions, base64 encode and base64 decode. I might be messing up the syntax of those functions, but we have the tools within FileMaker to turn a picture or any sort of binary data into a text representation, and we can pass that text as JSON.
Okay. This is a good question. Is there a custom function that will automatically convert a list of related records or records in the found set into a JSON array? You could build one. Yeah.
Well, is there a custom function that does all the found set? No, because you would have to loop through the records.
Yeah.
You could do related records. Is there a custom function? Probably. I would recommend. I imagine someone's already done it.
Yep.
And I would recommend looking on maybe Brian Dunning's website to see if anyone posted there. I believe there's another custom function website. Do a Google search. Otherwise, you can just make one yourself, or you would have to script it.
Is there a way to get a record count of JSON get elements and use that in some looping logic? I guess to set a counter or something?
Can you repeat that question?
Oh, sure. Is there a way to get a record count of JSON get elements? So I guess a count of everything in your JSON?
So we have JSON list keys, which is going to tell you all the first level keys in the JSON. What it's not going to tell you is how many objects there are. And if you had 10 student objects, you don't have that information using the FileMaker functions to determine how many there are. You just kind of have to loop through them. And when you hit, you just kind of have to know how many there are. And when you hit an empty one, break out from it. You could get a custom function. There probably is. And I would actually recommend Todd Geist's GitHub. He has a FileMaker file with a bunch of custom functions in there for working with JSON to expand the capabilities of just the JSON functions we have right now. And he might have something like that in there. It's a semi-community project, I believe. Other people have contributed to it. So check that out. But otherwise, if you were in a script, there's no native way to do it. You just have to loop through.
All right. If you create a JSON variable with some initial data, can you add more data elements to it later?
Absolutely. So in those examples where when we do JSON set element, the first parameter is JSON, and we were passing in a string open and closed curly brackets, and that just denotes a blank JSON object. You could actually pass existing JSON in there as well. You have time real quick for me to show you?
We are looking at 11 minutes. I think we're good.
We're good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. You would just pass, if you had the JSON in a variable, you would just pass the variable there. And if you wanted to edit, say, the student name, and if you wanted to edit the name, you could just pass the element, the path of what you wanted to edit. If there's nothing there, it'll create a new one. If there's something there, it'll modify what's already there.
Okay. This question, how can JSON be delivered to a FileMaker 16 client from a different service? So I think that question is about making a web service call that returns JSON.
How can it be delivered to FileMaker? Well, it's hard to just communicate.
Is that the insert from URL?
Yeah, you do it maybe the other way, where the service on the outside updates itself, and FileMaker you would tell FileMaker to go look at that the way we did in the first example. If you needed to do it automatically, you would maybe set up a server-side script that is on a timer, or the other option is you could have FileMaker set up there and use a new data API. That's kind of outside of the scope of that, but you could use that to pass the JSON as well into maybe a record.
Okay. How are special characters, quotes, single quotes, carriage returns, line feed, if you were passing JSON with like a notes field, I think? How is that all encoded?
Yeah, we covered. That was in the example.
Okay.
JSON, it's robust. It handles all that for you. You don't have to worry about it. If you're using the functions, it will escape all the characters that it needs to escape. And when it's making the JSON, and when you use JSON get element, it'll know to remove those escape characters. If you're doing it yourself, if you ever try to pass in a backslash, you know how confusing it can get if you have to pass in a lot of them. JSON will handle that for you.
Okay. Will the posted video also allow us to download the demos? Yes, we are going to post the demo file online. So on FileMakerAcademy.com, and then the past webinars page is where this one will be. It will be the first one because it's sorted chronologically. Items that are most recent will be at the top, and this one will be at the top, so you'll be able to click on it, see the video, which is also on our YouTube channel, and then you will be able to download the demo file. Anyone using REST API to bring JSON? Okay, so you sort of answered that question already about the REST API. Did FMI change the demo to 15 days with V17? As far as I know, there's definitely a 15-day demo on FileMaker Cloud. So if you use the the 5-seat demo version of FileMaker Cloud or trial version, you're restricted to 15 days. As far as I know, you still get 30 days with the download of 16. I don't think 17's been released at this point. At least I would hope I would have gotten a copy of it. I really like FileMaker, but so it's still 16, and yeah, I'm pretty sure that you get 30 days, but don't quote me on that. 15 days seems like enough time to probably at least get acclimated to some of these functions, but certainly not to build a solution with them. We've got, oh my goodness, we got a lot more. Character encoding. Oh, he said V16, got it. Somebody assuming JSON objects take up, I guess, memory usage, high memory usage, and that probably is based on the size of the JSON that you're passing. Best reference. Returning SQL results as JSON. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, you know, there's those two optional parameters at the end of the execute SQL function about the separation and how you separate the results you get, the different fields and the different records. And you could probably, I haven't done this yet, but you could probably put those characters in there to build the JSON that way and then wrap it appropriately. Before and after the results, and you could do that. Yeah, absolutely. Someone
asking, is there a tip for passing JSON dates? There's no JSON date data type, I guess. Is that
No, there's not. Go to modularfilemaker.com. Someone posted I believe it was Jeremy Mann who posted a module for handling that.
Okay. Is there anything for JSON that's equivalent to XSLT, style sheets for manipulating XML?
I don't think there's really any analogous. It's not analogous what that would be.
Yeah.
There's not that I know of. One thing I can think of is if you wanted to change the name, the order of the keys, but that's not a big deal. It's not as the styling is not as a variable as it can be in XML.
Okay. All right. So somebody confirming that the trial period is now 15 days, not 30. All right, work quickly. And question, modularfilemaker.org, somebody suggesting?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
My apologies, modularfilemaker.org.
Right.
It's an organization.
Yes, not a commercial endeavor. All right, and that's it. We got through everything. So again, thank you everyone for your time. We really do appreciate it. And we will post to FileMakerAcademy.com on the past webinars page. We don't have an announcement for an upcoming webinar at this point, but there is one in the works. So I look for an announcement on the main page of FileMakerAcademy.com in the next couple weeks. Thanks so much, and have a good day, everyone.